Back at it again. All right, seeing a place to be. Rick Serritella here on this January 3rd, 2026. Happy New Year to you. Broadcasting live from the confines of the Jersey Shore around the universe, wherever you may be tuned in. Brought to you by AllAccessFootball.com, home to 50,000 subscribers from 75 countries around the world, used by all 32 NFL teams. We are 110 days away from destination Pittsburgh. Can you feel it? Because the momentum is just flowing through my veins. I can't wait to get down there in Daytona for the Hula Bowl starting on Monday, just 2 days away. All Access Football and NFL Draft Bible is going to be on location across the nation for the Hula Bowl. The FCS Combine, which actually is tomorrow, our guy Dom Ambrose will be on location for that. We'll have all the results over on the website. We'll have exclusive practice reports and interviews down at the Hula Bowl with our guy Brian Baldinger, who jumps on with the All Access Football Draft coverage now that the NFL season is winding down. We'll also be on location, Baldy and myself, at the American Bowl in 2 weeks before we make our way over to Dallas for the East-West Shrine Bowl, and then, of course, Mobile for the Senior Bowl before we get to the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. So we're counting you down. Destination Pittsburgh every step of the way. Today we're going to get into some nitty-gritty draft talk. I am Rick Serritella, founder of AllAccessFootball.com, and we appreciate all the love and support. The 2026 NFL Draft Bible will be coming out in April. It will have at least 500 scouting reports. I think we're trending to be way over that mark. But we're going to recap some college football quarterfinals. We're going to look ahead at the semifinals, and there was so much great football over the holiday week. Again, I hope you had a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. 110 days away to the 2026 draft means it's draft season. So each and every week here now, we're going to be previewing the All-Star game circuit, right? We'll get into Hula Bowl standouts on next week's show. We'll start looking ahead at some of the other All-Star games, and we've got about 45 underclassmen or so who have declared for the 2026 NFL draft. The underclassmen tracker has been updated. Go over to the NFL headquarters on our menu tab, and we've got over 1,000 prospects sorted by the Power Four conferences, tracking all the All-Star games, the underclassmen reports, and well over hundreds, if not thousands, of scouting reports for 2026 and beyond. So looking forward. If you're going to be down there at the Hula Bowl, definitely drop us a line. Shout out to our guys in the chat room. Love to get the chat room fired up. Happy New Year to our guy, Tom Goodhines. Happy New Year to Douglas Dorner. Is Cam playing in an all-star game, by the way, Doug? I was trying to find out and look for him, but we also have the College Gridiron Showcase rosters coming. I have the Dream Bowl rosters coming on the website. So we're going to have the official measurements down from the Hula Bowl. I mean, if you're a draftnik, get certified, head over to the website. All right. Russ Lande will be joining me in just a moment. He's got a football hangover. I got the football fever. Let's see. Where shall we begin as we dive in? I got my scuba gear here on at the Jersey Shore. We're going to dive into the draft. And we got a question from Jeffrey Champion, 1149. Appreciate it. I have one question. Shedeur Sanders has 7 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions right now. Why does everybody give him a pass? If Dylan Gabriel put up those numbers, he would get crucified. Well, let's talk about that. And thank you for the question, Jeffrey Champion. And does he have 10 interceptions? Does he have that many? I was not aware of that. But based on what I've seen from Shedeur Sanders, is he has shown the ability to make big-time throws. And when Dylan Gabriel was in there, he was pretty much a dinker and a dunker. He didn't make the wow throw. He didn't throw like an opposite hash bullet into a tight window that we've seen Shedeur Sanders be able to make. And I think Shedeur does a great job extending plays, and he's not afraid to test it downfield. And just like at Jackson State, just like at Colorado, The deep ball is not always the tightest spiral. It's not always in the breadbasket, but he gives his wide receiver an opportunity to make the play. And I think Shedeur Sanders, considering his supporting cast, which has been horrendous, quite frankly, and Kevin Stefanski, I believe, working against him because egos destroy organizations. Ownership and Andrew Berry wanted Shedeur Sanders. Kevin Stefanski did not. And so I think it was detrimental to Shedeur Sanders' development. But he was our number one rated quarterback coming out of the draft. And I think he showed signs of being a potential franchise quarterback. Now, you look at where Cleveland is in the draft and what the options are. I don't know if there's a better signal caller, Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore included, better than Shedeur Sanders right now. So if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm going to hold on to my chips. But Dylan Gabriel just was not it. He did not show the ability to carry a team. He was just a game manager. And I think Dylan Gabriel could go on and have a successful career, maybe as a Chase Daniels type backup career. But that's my situation. Shedeur can make some throws, some next level throws that Dylan Sanders cannot. And I think there's something to the leadership, the intangible, the juice. Like you noticed right away as Shedeur Sanders was inserted into the Browns hot seat, right? Shedeur kind of rallied the troops, right? Like you could see the teammates gravitate towards him and just get pumped up and fired to play for this guy and run through a brick wall. I didn't see any of that with Dylan Gabriel in there. Let's see. Tommy Goodhines, what player this college postseason has had the highest rise in their draft stock due to their play? Great question. I'm going to go Lee Hunter from Texas Tech. This dude is just a double, triple team, body eating, space gobbling, run stuffing, interior pass rush. There's not much that Lee Hunter cannot do. And you've seen him track down ball carriers. I mean, we're talking about grown men that weigh probably close to 200 pounds less than Lee Hunter, who comes in at about 340. Well, you've seen him run down 180-pound running backs. The lateral quickness, the explosiveness, blowing up the backfield. I think Lee Hunter made himself a lot of money in the college football playoffs because I kind of viewed him as, a top 100 guy, maybe latter day 3. Now I'm not so sure he doesn't sneak into the first round. And I think his invite at Mobile is going to go a long ways towards cementing his draft stock because once you get this guy one-on-one, mano-a-mano, in the trenches, down there in Mobile, woo, that's the player I'm looking forward to the most, quite honestly. Not all the edge rushers. Big Lee Hunter. Big game Hunter. This guy's an animal, man. And he could play for me any day of the week. And I'm going to stick to it with that first round grade on Lee Hunter. But appreciate the questions in the chat room. I love getting fired up with you guys. And it's been way too long since I've seen you, Tommy Goodhines. Doug Durner, maybe I'll run into you at one of the All-Star games. We'll wait on Cam. And we're waiting on Russ Lande to hopefully join us soon here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch show. All right, I'm going to take a quick commercial break, see if Russ joins us. When I come back, I'm going to get into some of the quarterfinal recaps. We're going to look ahead at some of the semifinal showdowns. And this is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch show. We're live each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. And also when we come up on the draft season, which we're entering right now, we're going to have the Scout Honor podcast, which will be firing up probably right around Senior Bowl time with Dave Del Cole. That is in honor of Dave T. Thomas. If you're an NFL draftnik, then you're familiar with Dave T. Thomas. And Dave Del Cole has done a great job keeping the Scout Honor podcast alive. I'll be hopping on board with him. We'll also have Brian Baldinger throughout the draft season. Again, he'll be on location with me at the Hula Bowl, the American Bowl, the Senior Bowl. So stay tuned for our on location across the nation All-Star game coverage. And we're going to take a quick 40-second break. I'm going to come back with some hardcore NFL draft talk. We're going to bang you and bop you over the head with prospects. Don't go anywhere. Back at it again. All right, seeing the place to be. Rick Serritella here. You out there. We're broadcasting live from the confines of the Jersey Shore, around the universe, wherever you may be tuned in. And we got the chat room on fire. We got some NFL draft fever. We got bowl season talk. By the way, the bowl season coverage has officially wrapped up. College football playoff. We got 3 more games, but we had bowl season previews each and every day over at allaccessfootball.com. If you log on to today's link, today's newsletter, the Draft Watch Show, we have archived all of our bowl season coverage for you to digest and consume. All right, let's get into this Miami-Ohio State game. Like, this was probably the most shocking result from the quarterfinal, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. And, you know, I sat here on this very show, and I also went on Sports Rage and predicted the Ohio State Buckeyes to win this ball game. But as we got closer to kickoff, I got a feeling that this Miami defensive line was going to give Ohio State some big time issues. And that's exactly how it played out. And boy, oh boy, like Ruben Bain, what a talent. And we had the text message chain flowing with the NFL Draft Bible Scouting Department. Shout out to all those guys. And internally here at our organization, we do have some debate as to what the future holds for Ruben Bain, because there's no question about the talent, right? The question is, 1, his desire, and 2, the arm measurements. And we went through this a year ago with Will Campbell. I get it. But Will Campbell, we were talking about 33-inch arms. Ruben Bain reportedly has come in under 31-inch arms. Now, that is from the spring, and it's also should be noted that according to our scouts, like those were some young scouts that were down there in Coral Gables. They might not be completely accurate, but just to be in that 31-inch arm range, and the fact that he has refused to kick inside. Like, he does not want to be a 3 technique. He has remained firm with the coaching staff in Miami and let them know, like, I'm an edge rusher. And I just wonder if that's going to be detrimental to his NFL future if he takes that kind of mentality and approach with him into these NFL meetings at the combine and declares I'm a defensive end, because apparently one NFL team ran the data and there's never been a defensive end in the history of the league, as far as data goes available, that had 30-inch arms. Never in the league, in the history. So that tells me, like, he needs to kick inside and be a 3 tech. And I see draft Twitter is standing on Ruben Bain as an edge rusher. I'm sorry. You're going to go against the test of time, the history of all the players that ever played in the National Football League. You're going to tell me Ruben Bain is the one exception that has ever occurred? I don't know if I can buy that. Hey, it's Rick Serritella. It's 10:20 Eastern time. We're broadcasting live around the football universe, and my co-host is about to join us right now. He is a former scout for the Cleveland Browns, St. Louis Rams, of course, started off with the UCLA Bruins, worked his way over to the original XFL Canadian Football League, CBS Today Show, a mentor at Sports Management Worldwide for their football GM and scouting course. Of course, my co-host here each and every week on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. He is Russ Lande. And listen, he may sometimes be late, but he's always on time. Russ Lande, welcome into the show. How you doing, Russ, in Chi-Town?
I'm doing great, brother. I apologize for being a few minutes late.
Yeah, no, all good, man. You're actually right on time because I just got into my first recap with the Cotton Bowl, Miami, Ohio State, and Ruben Bain was just lights out, as was Akeem Mesidor. And then you had the big interception from Keontae Scott, the safety, that really changed the momentum of that game. But Bain set the tone early, and I was talking about his arm length measurements. I know we've debated about it on this show. I just don't see a future for him as an edge rusher, despite a monstrous performance and the momentum that he has right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you say about him is 100% on because the data is the data. I mean, none of us, hey, trust me, you, me, any of the scouts in the league that watch film religiously want to look at film and then kill a kid because of a number. Now, does it mean he's not going to get an opportunity as a defensive end? No, he's going to get that opportunity.
Sure.
The big question is going to be, and remember, those short arms are also a factor even at D tackle. Mm-hmm. Because even at D tackle, even though the guards have generally 31 to 32-inch arms a lot of times, sometimes 33, it's a bigger issue. Or not a big issue. It is still a big issue. At the All-Star games, I'm sure NFL teams are going to bring up to him, hey, your future is going to be inside. Now, if he responds with, hey, if I can't play end, I'll play tackle, and whatever you need me to do, he'll probably go higher than he would if he is adamant about saying I'm a defensive end. And that's what's going to have to be – the teams are going to have to find out. Somebody will take a roll of the dice because he was so incredibly productive in college. But with that arm length and that data, it does make you think that a guy that people thought was a slam dunk top 10 pick could be a maybe second or third round pick. Someone will roll the dice because they're willing to say, hey, this guy's production is so off the charts, it's going to be there. Similar to now I'm forgetting the name of the receiver who was so great. Oh, Anquan Bolden. It's a very similar type story.
4.72.
4.72 at the combine. All the data basically said that in the 20 years prior to him coming in the league, I don't think any receiver would run that slow and ever become more than like a back-of-the-end roster guy. And he still ended up going in the second round. Initially, he was thought to be a top 5 or 10 pick. So it's a very scary situation because when the data is that against you, it's almost like there's more data on this than there is on the one-year starting quarterbacks. And teams in the NFL are terrified of the one-year starting quarterbacks. So imagine if you're talking about a defensive end with tiny arm length. So that'll be a big measurement when it comes down to it. Were his arms like 30 on the Blesto, or was that not even a Blesto list?
No, it wasn't on the Blesto or National, but according to the scouts that went in there in the spring, it came in under 31. So I don't know if that was 30 and 7/8 or 30 and a half, but apparently it was under 31.
31. Yeah, I mean, it'll be a red flag. I will say this. I think a lot of teams are going to look because the other thing that's changed over the years that's helped out a lot of guys with a little bit shorter arms is wingspan. If his wing is closer to a guy with 32 or 3 because he has broader shoulders, that'll help him. But you can be sure teams are going to want to know right off the bat. They're going to want to get a full body metric scan so they can plug it in and compare it to recent guys. But it is a concern. And I got to tell you, that game, I mean,
hold on. Before you get into it, I do want to say one thing about the data and analytics, too, that a lot of front office philosophies believe in. Is when it comes to assessing the data and the analytics, the debate inside the war room becomes
well, it almost becomes traditional film scouting versus just
right. It becomes more of getting it right versus being right.
Yes, right? For sure it does. Yeah. And I think the teams that generally are smartest about it are the teams that find a way to say, okay, we do believe in film, but we also believe in using the analytics to lessen our risk with the grades we use on film. And the way you would do that in this case is you wouldn't say, hey, we're taking Bain and we're throwing him off the board because no one's ever been successful. But instead of him getting maybe, if it were my scouting system, instead of him getting maybe an 8.6, which is a top 5 grade, we're going to use our scheme to bump him down to a 7.9, which means he's the top of the second round. So that we're not going to risk as high a pick on a guy that the data says really can't make it. And that's where you find the teams that are very smart. And one of the things that you and I both have talked about a lot is the Seahawks were like the first team that really dove into a metric. They took Nike's Spark score, put that in their system, and basically said, we're not taking anybody that grades under 50% of the NFL athlete at this position. And they used that for a while. And then as teams started to jump in and really get into analytics, now every team has created their own quote-unquote Spark score and their own explosive score for every position. So it will be very interesting as we get closer to the draft and there are real measurables on Bain, what teams have as those scores. Now, the other thing we could throw into this that would be interesting is if Bain has been adamant about, I won't kick inside, and then he tells NFL teams he will he be adamant like a receiver that went 4th overall a few years ago about not working out? Will he refuse to be measured? And how will that affect it? Will some team allow him to dictate it and potentially make a mistake? Because at this point, Marvin Harrison Jr. has not shown he was worth the 4th pick overall. And is a team going to be willing to draft a player who is unwilling to be measured or timed? That could be it'll be interesting what agency gets him and what they recommend to him.
Yeah, and Harrison, I don't want to label him a bust just yet, but you're right. He has not lived up to the billing of a number 4 pick.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine as a big possession guy.
Yeah.
But at number 4 overall, we're looking for dynamic and special. And I'm not seeing that when I see him on the field. I see a big, smooth, sure-handed, always dropped surprisingly number of balls receiver. But I don't see that guy who can a big kid who can just say adios like Calvin Johnson did.
Yeah, no, when you're picking inside the top 5, you want to expect to get a cornerstone franchise building block.
Yeah, right? Exactly. That's the best way to say it.
All Access Football Show. Russ, by the way, Tom Goodhines wanted to say Happy New Year to you.
Oh, Tommy, what's up, brother?
And we also got Doug Durner saying, like Saban said, if Miami gets in the playoff, most dangerous team anyone has to play. And we'll talk about this Ole Miss matchup coming up. But the way this defensive line pummeled the front, and then Carson Beck, let's talk about him for a second, because in what is looking like a dwindling QB class, Beck is going to be in this draft class. And it wasn't magnificent. And we talked about it last week. 60% of his passes traveled through the air 5 yards or less. But you saw the big play with C.J. Daniels. He made it when he needed to. But again, a lot of game management. But at the end of the day, Russ, he works these short to intermediate parts of the field masterfully. And that's a big part of what the NFL game is at the next level.
There's no doubt. I mean, and I think the other thing that you saw in this game, besides the fact that I think he did a great job of on the ones where they wanted it out fast, he got it out quickly, accurately, and he didn't put the ball in a risky spot. But I think the other thing that showed is, I mean, you can point just across the way at Ohio State, the young kid who I think is going to be a phenomenal quarterback. But late in the game, when Miami had to make a few throws just to keep the ball and keep the clock moving, Beck came up with throws. They may not have been perfect. They may not have been great, but they were quick. Sometimes they were in between guys, whatever it was. He didn't put the ball in bad spots. He was accurate, and he made the key throws at key spots, and obviously made the big one down the field. But I think he has shown that, we all knew the physical was there. We all knew he was a tall kid. He had a big arm. He's a little bit awkward looking. There's a little bit of Joe Flacco movement in how he moves, but he's athletic enough at times to avoid the rush. And I think you saw some of what he's gone through in his journey of being in college, jumping schools and everything, the maturity. He really seemed much more calm and mature. I don't know about you, but when I watch a game and I'm rooting for one team, which you shouldn't be in these games if you're a scout, but you want one team to win, you start thinking, oh, God, don't screw it up. How would I perform in that? I would die on the vine. But this kid seemed very calm. He didn't get panicked. When they showed the pictures of him, like, walking and talking to teammates between the set, he seemed calm. You didn't see it like the big eyes of white and everything. I was really impressed with him. I thought he did a good job. So I'm excited to see where they go. I mean, we talked about it a lot. You talked about the right tackle being such a stud, the big Bell kid on the left side, the veteran center. I mean, they did a good job against an elite defensive line and kept him pretty clean. They're going to be a hard out. I was surprised at how well they played. I thought they had a chance. You were the one who thought they had a better chance than I did. But, man, the whole group back, the receivers, everybody, they really did a magnificent job.
They did. And what I like most about Beck, Russ, is he wins 36-5 now.
It's crazy how good he wins.
Yeah. All right. Russ Lande, Rick Serritella. For Ohio State now, we're going to see the mass exodus because, again, we posted on Monday at the Scout Notebook an updated top 100. Well, the top 5 with 4 Buckeyes and Jeremiah Love. So you got Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles, the linebackers. How about Caleb Downs forcing 2 fumbles in that game? And then I've got Carnell Tate as a top 10, top 5 talent. And Caden McDonald is probably going to sneak into the first round. So the Buckeyes are going to have to reload now as their offseason begins. The transfer portal opened up yesterday. We've got over, 5,000 guys in the portal. So that'll be something else that we're tracking over at allaccessfootball.com. Let's talk a little let's go Georgia Ole Miss, Russ, because this game was the last of the quarterfinals, and we talked about Trinidad Chambliss, the mystical, magical run, and we've debated whether or not he's a pro caliber prospect. I mean, listen, it's not the ideal body type. It's not the traditional pocket passer, make your progressions. It's more of extending plays, point guard style of quarterbacking. But how do you feel about, does it translate to the NFL?
I think it definitely translates to the NFL. Whether it translates to being a starter, I'm not so sure about that. I think, to me, he's going to be a guy. I mean, I know I mentioned the comparison before, probably a little bit higher level, but there's a lot of Taylor Heineke in this kid when I watch him. The kid's obviously athletic. He can escape and get out and make plays. He can make throws on the run. I'd like to see more consistent accuracy. That's the one thing. Even in this game, he missed some throws where I was like, oof. And he will, at times, put the ball. He'll gamble a little bit. He'll throw a few balls up there. But I think when you look at this kid, you see a lot of the attributes to at least get to the NFL and challenge to be a backup. Whether he can pull it off and be more than that, I'm not there yet. But again, I haven't studied him. I've just watched him. And that's one of the things our people watching should understand. There's a difference between watching a football game and watching 3 or 4 games and sitting down and evaluating and charting throws and seeing all that. That's what scouting is. I have not done that with him yet. I will at some point. To me, he looks like a high-end backup quarterback at the NFL level. And I will say, just on a total side note, it's great that they won. I was excited to see them win. You can be sure the entire NCAA wanted Georgia to win, because to have Beck go back against Georgia, they would have killed for that matchup. So that would have been – that's what they wanted. I'm sure Lane Kiffin wanted Ole Miss so he could get his extra money.
Yeah, well, no, it becomes interesting, too, because now all these coaches are in limbo as they keep going further and further into the playoffs. The transfer portal is open, and there's like 5 or 6 guys on the Ole Miss coaching staff that are going to bounce for LSU. One, they're hanging out, probably setting themselves up to poach a bunch of these guys. But 2, I mean, how much can these coaches truly be dedicated to game planning for the next matchup when they're like trying to recruit for the next school? I mean, I don't know. I don't get it.
No, and a perfect example. And I mean, I'm going to go back to the other game that we just talked about as an example. This is just look at Ohio State. Ryan Day took over play calling from Brian Hartline, who was there. He's on the staff. He's there doing his thing. But because he's going to be the head coach at, I think it's UCF or USF, he said, let me take this over so you can focus a little on that. And you wonder, did that play, interception return for a touchdown, which was clearly a film-based touchdown. It had nothing to do with a bad throw or any of that. It was clearly they knew if the receiver turned and the tackle moved, this was the play, because he didn't even look at the receiver. He knew where the ball was going and just went for the pick. You wonder if, because Ryan hadn't been part of the play calling all season, did he make a call out of almost habit, like, oh, this one's always worked, as opposed to knowing, hey, this play, we have to tell them that somebody to line up a little different to be deceptive. If that's the case, then you wonder if that can happen with Ole Miss, because they reported like those coaches that are going to be at LSU were already back at LSU on Friday morning. So they were there at LSU. So even if they come back, they're missing 4 or 5 days of prep.
Yeah, it's wild. And to that point, Russ, like you talk about X factors in the college football playoff, I think and I hate constant change, especially when it comes to this college football playoff format, but it's clearly broken. We've talked about it in the past. And now, since the 12-team era has arrived, teams that have first-round byes are 1-7. 1-7. Like, Indiana's the only team that's ever had a bye to win their first game in the college football playoff. I mean, that screams out to me like this needs to be tweaked.
Oh, well, I would be stunned if it either doesn't go back to 8 or go to 16. So that the teams are playing 16, and the break's not as long.
That's the problem, though. Like 16, we're already letting too many into the dance. This is not the March Madness where FBS and mid-major and small school team, like the Tulanes and the James Madison, we've had enough. I don't want more of these teams in the dance. Right?
Trust me, I agree with you.
Why can't we just fix the current model, let it start a little bit earlier, don't have all these bye weeks and downtime in between, and just play week after week after week? I mean, Ohio State didn't play for a month.
Yep, it's a crazy thing the way they have it set up. If they could get rid of bowl games or get rid of some of them and just have it be literally end of the season, maybe they all get 1 week off. Then the next week you have the first round of the playoffs, and then boom, next week the second round. So there's no month-long break. Give them 2 weeks. So the first teams have to play with no break. The second teams play right after that. So they get 2 weeks, not a month. That, I think, is doable. But, yeah, I agree with you. And also I think one of the things you're going to see is at some point, I don't know if it'll be this offseason, maybe a year from now, they're going to have to come up with a players' association and come up with an agreement, because they've got to change the portal to after the playoffs are over. They've got to, and this is something I've been told that a few schools have already talked about, is they want to see the rules like the NFL. You can't even talk to a coach at another school until after the playoffs are over. And no coaches can leave one staff and go to another until the playoffs are over.
Yeah,
so if you move the portal and do those two things with the coaches, they'll have a lot more sanity. And then you reduce that thing we talked about in the playoffs. I think you get a much better quality product on the field. And I think you also allow both coaches and players to make the proper decisions. Because I guarantee you, there will be coaches that would be moving to LSU, that will be moving from some of these other programs that are doing this sort of shuffle right now. There will be some that end up regretting the move because they think the grass is greener. They're racing for this job. And their mind is going a million miles an hour because they're trying to coach, they're trying to recruit at the other school. If they were forced to just coach it out and then take the time, make a decision, I think you get better decisions.
Better decisions and better overall quality of play.
Without question.
Russ Lande. I'm Rick Serritella. Doug Dorner says Chambliss is a baller. I mean, he was spraying the ball around. And, I mean, he hit his playmakers. Harrison Wallace, 9 catches for $156. Deshaun Stribling, 7 for $122. And Xavier Harris coming up big. I'd see him as a day 2 prospect at D tackle, 10 tackles there against Georgia.
How the Eccles guy, right?
Yeah, Eccles is a stud. Absolute stud. 5 tackles, 2 tackles in the backfield. And he's been solid all season long for the Rebels. We'll talk about Ole Miss a little bit later in the show as they get ready to match up against Ole Miss is going to take on Indiana.
Oh, they're Miami.
Miami.
Oh, is it Indiana?
Yeah, Miami. I'm sorry.
Miami, yeah, because of Georgia, Miami. Yeah,
I got too many tabs open here on my thing. How about our good friend Mike Williams down there at Ole Miss, Russ? We had a chance to work with at the Hub Football Camp, and I think now part of that front office there for the Rebels.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mike obviously is part of the crew that went to LSU. I wonder if he's involved anymore, or they said, "Hey, we're Portal, and you're one of the head guys at LSU. You're out." But it's great for Mike. I mean, I think we both liked Mike a lot when we worked with him. A good dude, knows his football, and it's interesting. He's one of those guys, longtime NFL guy, jumped in the college deal early, like 3 years ago. When now NFL people are starting to really look at colleges, and he's sort of cemented himself. He's not the GM, but he's like the number 2 guy at LSU. Without question, within 2 years, he's going to be a GM of one of these Power 4 programs. So it's great for Mike. Exciting to see a good guy get this opportunity.
Yeah, I wasn't aware he was part of the exodus over there to LSU. Interesting. And then Tom Goodhine says, how about Marvin Harrison Jr.? How much is due to the quarterback play? Maybe it has some impact, but I would say little to none because to me, the biggest issue when it comes to Harrison has been the dropsies. I mean, this guy's got parquet for hands, and that's been the biggest issue is just the amount of drops. But, I think there's time for Marvin Harrison to turn around the narrative, but I agree with Russ. Like, he's not going to be some kind of all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver. Maybe there's a few Pro Bowl years down the road. But
I think he can be a step. I think to me, sorry, Rick, I didn't mean to cut you there.
No,
I think he's a guy who can catch 70 to 80 balls, no question. But is he going to be the guy who says, I'm gone like a Keenan Allen, who was not a Blazer, but he left guys in the dust, a Calvin Johnson, who was obviously a gigantic man like Harrison, but he could run. To me, when I look at Harrison, I see a guy who can, no doubt, still be a very productive receiver. I just don't know if he's ever going to be that special receiver. And to answer Tommy's question, yeah, can a receiver's numbers suffer because of his quarterback? 100%. But let's also remember, there have been a lot of receivers on awful teams that put up crazy numbers with the worst quarterbacks just because the teams are bad, so they start throwing the ball so much when they're behind that those receivers sometimes pile up unbelievable numbers, even though the quarterback's bad, just because they're throwing the ball 50 times a game. So I agree it has hurt the whole team, but Harrison, to me, at this point, you have to question the speed, the hands, and durability. I mean, he's a big kid, and he's missed games, a lot of games with injuries at this point. It's surprising.
Yeah, and you wonder, how much of it's in his head. I remember the one primetime game, he was over there on the sidelines, and to his credit, he did come out in the second half and bounce back, but he was just like a deer in headlights that first half, lost amongst himself on the sidelines, teammates coming over and consoling him. So Marvin Harrison still I don't want to say a project, but still a work in progress. That's Russ Lande. I'm with Serritella. It's all good, Russ. We're going to transition over to Oregon, Texas Tech, which I thought was going to be a close matchup, especially with Baron Morton now healthier. But Morton couldn't get the Red Raiders offense going. 2 interceptions on the day. I thought he played very disappointing, and I was a little bit surprised by that. Dante Moore, I think he continues to show these flashes that, hey, you know what? Look at me, guys. I'm making throws that others just simply cannot.
Yeah, I mean, I was both disappointed in Morton not being able to play better. I was shocked that Texas Tech didn't get more pressure. I really thought they were going to drive Dante Moore crazy all game. There were periods where they got to him, but overall, their offense did some good things. Moore showed what we have talked about all season. He is not there as a first pass to the end of the game guy that is just a top quarterback. But a third of the game, he looks like a legit NFL stud. When you see the athleticism, you see the size, he made some throws in that game exactly how you said it, that there are so few guys who can actually make. But he also missed some throws, and there was inconsistency. That's what makes you question it. The one thing that's going to help him a lot, I believe, as he goes through this process is when quarterbacks with all the skills, and they work out really well, which he's going to work out tremendously well, are also mature, and he's been through the grinder a bit, he's going to impress the offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches in the interviews, I believe. And if he does that, I have a feeling he will go higher in the draft than people talk about. I think there will be people who debate if he should go. And I'm not saying it's going to be me. I have not broken down the film on him, but there will be teams, I'll bet you, that will have him as the number one quarterback in the draft.
Myself included.
Yeah, I think he's because skill wise, and I like Mendoza. I think Mendoza obviously is more polished, but arm wise, he's a step to me. He's above Mendoza in terms of power on throws. Obviously, athleticism, he's above Mendoza. And as long as the interviews go well and he looks good in his workout to where the coaches say, I can make him become more consistent, then there are going to be teams that are going to put him ahead of Mendoza on the board. It's going to be those two guys is what it looks like, because I can't envision Simpson jumping into the mix now. I think he's not going to be able to compete with those two. I will say the interesting one I've heard, and I don't know if you've heard this too, and I supposedly it looks like he's staying. He's going to Indiana's talking to him about coming there to replace Mendoza. Is the kid from Cincinnati? Yeah, NFL teams have told me he could get a higher grade than Mendoza if he came in the draft.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm not a huge Mendoza fan, and Ty Simpson I think has got cracked ribs now, so he should just go back to Tuscaloosa and get right. But
yeah,
to me, Moore is the more impressive quarterback when you stack up Moore and Mendoza side by side. And it was a fantastic first. I mean, this is going to be a great rematch when they face the Hoosiers again.
No doubt.
But to me, like Mendoza has the higher floor. Moore has a greater ceiling.
There's no question. I mean, Mendoza, what you love about him is the calm, the composure, the ability to make basically basic throws within the flow of the game accurately. The question to me is going to be, and we both know this, the NFL, this is like, and people don't realize this until they've been at NCAA, been at P4 practices, and then you go to the NFL practices. I don't care if it's Georgia, Alabama, Indiana, Oregon. The jump in speed is so dramatic. Is Mendoza, who does not have Moore's arm, but he's got the head, is he going to be able to fit balls in and make some of those throws into those tight spots that are closing faster? That's going to be a big debate. That's where we're really going to see how much an anticipatory thrower he is. Because if you're not anticipatory, that window is going to close too fast.
Well, I think it's a very simple. I hate to say it, it's a one-read system. It's an RPO system that sets him up for a one-read success, like out of that shotgun. Like to me, he doesn't line up under center. He doesn't call plays like they do a hand clap. Like he's not out there like calling an elaborate scheme, right? And I think like when you get to the NFL, now you've got to work under center. Now you've got to be a leader of men. Now you got to have command of the huddle. They go a lot of no huddle. They go line up and just slap and go. There's a lot, I think, from the mechanical, intricacies of playing the position that Fernando Mendoza just simply doesn't have experience doing.
Well, yeah, the lack of it. I mean, look, last year, Curtis Work had a really good year until he got hurt, and he was a 7th round pick. So now the good thing is, and I mean, given that you're going to be able to find out as scouts what this kid was required to do, what he was allowed to do. Was he allowed to make checks at the line? Was he making any protection calls? All of those things are going to be what teams are going to want to know. Because as an outsider, I can look and say it doesn't look like it. But sometimes certain quarterbacks are so good that the coach gives them more than the offense usually allows. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Mendoza, when I watch him, he looks like that guy, and you hate to say it, but he looks like that guy who's going to be good enough to start and win if he's got talent around him. I don't know if he's going to be the guy who can throw a team on his back and say, hey, boys, let's go. Whereas when you look at Dante Moore could be a guy who is so inconsistent that he never becomes a good starter. But if you can work out some of those kinks, he has those tools to put a team on his back and say, I'm the guy, let's go do this. So that's and that also comes down to organizational philosophy, right? If you're a team that believes we'd rather go safe, we're going to take the guy that we believe is a little more probably likely to never be a bust. you may go with Mendoza and say, all right, this kid will make most of the throws. He'll be consistent. He won't make the big mistake. He's a great kid, high character. We feel the odds of him not being a starter are low, whereas with Moore, great kid, high character, inconsistent throwing the ball, even though he has rare talent, we think there's a chance he's never going to be a good starter. Do we take him? And that'll be an organizational philosophy decision, because I will say there are some comparisons you could make, and I don't want to say that it's true because I did not like Trey Lance when he came out of school. But in terms of all the physical tools, very high character, Dante Moore is unbelievable character, great kid, all the physical talent. Now, Moore is a better college player than Trey Lance was, in my opinion. But there is that question of Trey Lance was a guy who had no floor. He could fall to nothing, but he had a ceiling that was unbelievable. And obviously the 49ers decided to roll the dice on it. So it'll be interesting to see which teams and their philosophies, and the Raiders, obviously, with Tom Brady there. Do you think they might be a team that says we'd rather go cautious? Because Tom was not a great athlete. Tom was not a guy that had world-class arm strength. He had a good arm, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't unbelievable. Are they going to err towards we can't miss this pick and we'll go with Mendoza rather than rolling the dice and going with Moore? I mean, it's going to be, to me, this debate going up to the draft is going to be very interesting.
It is. And I think, the way I kind of try to view it, like right off the bat, I'm thinking to myself, is that even an upgrade to go from Geno Smith to Mendoza? Like, does that really significantly upgrade your team? And the way I see it, Russ, when you're trying to assess these quote-unquote franchise quarterbacks and how they translate at the next level, I look at it like this. Like, there's maybe 5 quarterbacks that I would say are franchise signal callers that I would build an organization around, right? And then there's probably another 7 or 8 guys that are in that second tier where you say they're just in a separate class.
Yeah, like the Herbert. The guys
right.
that are
the Justin Herberts and
the Jalen Hurts, the guys that could be elite but aren't elite all the time.
Yeah, and so that leaves about 15, 16, the other half of the league that is just kind of replaceable, right? Like, they can give you a shot to win. They're not going to carry the team on the back. And you want to have one of those, I mean, in an ideal world.
14, but yeah,
right.
You want the top 5.
so like, and I just don't, like, when I look at Mendoza's characteristics and traits at the next level, I don't see him ever being in that upper echelon category, right? Like, and to me, if you're a team like the Raiders and you're picking number 1 overall and you go lateral from Geno Smith to Mendoza, well, guess what? In 2 years, you're going to be picking number 1 again.
It's possible. I mean, the reality is the Raiders aren't bad just because of Geno. I mean, they have a lot of holes.
Talent depleted team, and I'm not even a Geno Smith fan. I think he's a backup.
Yeah, at this point, I think he is. He had a few good years where he really played what we thought he could be when he came out of college. But
and honestly, if Mendoza was in last year's draft, I would think of him. I would view him as a backup.
I could see that. I
think we're trying to force him into being this.
There always is. I mean, look at every year, right? There's 3, 4, 5 guys go in the first round, where really 2 or 3 are legit guys, and 2 or 3 get pushed up the board. But all that being said, let's be fair. The 6th guy taken 2 years ago, Bo Nix, everybody thought was a game manager, didn't have the tools, wasn't good enough. And I think at this point he's shown, hey, I may not have an elite arm, but I'm good enough to be an NFL starter I mean, to me, he's more consistent than guys like Justin Herbert at this point in his career. So sometimes it's hard to really get a true feel. Mendoza, to me, looks like a good, solid starter in the NFL. Is he going to be elite? No. But is he going to be solid and consistent? I think he will.
Yeah, and I'd like to get your opinion on these Fernando Mendoza interviews, but he went 14 of 16 there in the Rose Bowl, 3 touchdowns, clean game, 192 yards. That 1-2 combination, we mentioned it. Indiana runs the ball 55% of the time, and when you can hand it off to Roman Hemby, Kalen Black, 99 yards and 89 yards each with the scoring touchdown. For Alabama, Russ, they just couldn't get that run game going. And 17 carries for 23 yards. I think the week before it was 25 carries for 28 yards. But I will say, Alabama now is going to have some guys who depart here, and you wonder I don't recall such an embarrassing loss under the Nick Saban era. Like, is Kalen DeBoer going into 2026 on the hot seat?
It's an interesting question because what was it after week 1 or 2? Excuse me. That everybody thought DeBoer was in trouble, right? They started off bad. Everybody said, is DeBoer in trouble? They righted the ship. They got the wins to get in the playoffs. But look at that team. I mean, the O-line has a few good guys. They're gone. Their best receiver, he's gone. They're losing 2 or 3 of their top defensive players. Unless they really do a great job in the portal and they really have young guys that are ready to step in, which if they were ready to step in, why weren't some of them playing? I agree with you. I think unless Ty Simpson makes huge strides for next year, you could be looking at a situation where 7 or 8 wins, 6 or 7 wins, and at most schools, that might get you another year if you go to the playoffs. But at Alabama, 6 or 7 wins could be a firing offense. So, I think he's going to be on the hot seat.
No doubt about it. Any thoughts? I did not see a slaughter fest on my hands here, but that's exactly. I mean, Indiana to me clearly looked like the best team in the dance this past weekend.
I think they did. I think Miami showed me they're going to be a hard team to beat the rest of the way. But Indiana, I think it was consistency. They didn't make mistakes. They can run the ball and they can throw the ball, and their defense is underrated. So I think all that combined, they are definitely the number 1 team sitting there right now.
Yeah, and our guy Aiden Fisher had a big game, 7 tackles, a sack, tackle for loss, making big plays. I love some Aiden Fisher, whose draft stock is on the rise. Rick Serritella, Russ Lande, breaking it down, chopping it up. We're here each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're going to talk some college football playoff semifinals action with only 3 games left to go. And we have the let's see here. January 8th is going to be Miami versus Ole Miss at Glendale, Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl at the State Farm Stadium. And then we've got Friday, January 9th, College Football Playoff Semifinal Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Oregon and Indiana. We're going to talk about those 2 matchups, but first we're going to take a quick commercial break. So please keep it locked. Don't stop. And we'll be back right after this. All right, we're back at it again. All right, seeing the place to be. Rick Serritella, telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin, along with my co-host, Russ Lande, former scout, St. Louis Rams, Cleveland Browns, UCLA Bruins, XFL, CFL. We're here each and every Saturday to chop it up and break it down, and we just recapped the quarterfinals. We're going to fast forward now to the semifinals coming up here, Russ. And, I mean, this path to the championship now looks pretty damn good for the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes as they face the 6 seed Ole Miss Rebels. And before we get into the prospect breakdown, how sick and tired are you of Lane Kiffin and look at me, look at me. It's all about me, Lane Kiffin. I mean, this guy he's a little bit tone deaf, I think.
I think he's a little tone deaf. That's an understatement. I think part of it is and this is just my sort of outside psychologist thing, I think he left for LSU because he feels it's a better job. He's getting more money. I think his heart was with these players and wanting to be and stay at Ole Miss, not just coach them now. I think he would have loved to have stayed at Ole Miss if the programs were considered similar. So I think he's sort of torn. I think he's a little bit, the grass may not be greener. I may have left a good thing in that sort of situation. And he is, hey, let's be reality. I think he's trying to do everything he can to make sure his name stays front and center now, that people remember he's the guy who built this team. So when he goes to LSU and wins, he does, from what I've been told, very much want another shot in the NFL. So I think he wants to keep his name in the mix, keep people remembering, hey, I built Ole Miss. We turned into champions. I'm going to LSU. When I turn them into champions, I want back at the league. I've heard a lot of people talk about him and Sark as two guys that will end up back in the NFL if they can get that image back.
I can see that, but, I'll tell you right now, with the Lane Kiffin NFL rumors already beginning, I don't know if it's going to work out for him in LSU. And, the problem's always been he just can't stay content at a job. And I'm the new Lane, but the Lane train departs more often than it stations.
And LSU's a different place for being the guy.
Yeah.
Mississippi, like Oxford, Mississippi, that's it. They have good fans, but their fans are also a little bit realistic. They don't regularly get 10 or 11 wins. That's a team that's always struggling to keep up with the LSU, with the Alabama, with the Georgia. Well, now he's going to a place where an 8 or 9 win season isn't going to be, okay, next year's good. It's going to be like Alabama. If you have a down year and then you don't follow it up with it going to the playoffs, you're going to be fired. So it's a risky proposition, and I agree with you. I don't know if he can repair that image enough to realistically get in the NFL, but I know he wants it from what I've been told.
Very interesting. All right, let's get into the matchup. Miami, Ole Miss. When you take a look at these two schools, one is loaded. I mean, Miami has got several potential first-round picks. We talked about Reuben Bain, the offensive tackle, Francis Mauigoa. I mean, I think the way Akeem Messidor, Tom Goodhines asked us who was the biggest riser from the college football playoff. I mean, you got to put Akeem Messidor in that mix, your guy out of Ottawa. So there's a lot of top caliber talent on the Miami side of the ball. I think when you look at Ole Miss, we talked about Xavier Harris, probably a top 100 prospect, but most of the players on the Rebels are going to be day 3 type of prospects. However, like we said, they've got this chemistry going, and sometimes, Golding and company, like I think the coaching staff is probably the biggest question mark going into this game. I think Ole Miss is capable, but I think Miami is going to really drop the hammer, and Trinidad Chambliss is going to have his toughest challenge of his collegiate career to date.
I agree with that. It's going to be a major challenge. The one thing I think that's unique is if you take Xavier Harris and you take Eccles, they should be able to make the inside running very difficult for Miami. So Fletcher and that offense are going to have to run on the edges for Miami. So the question is, are they good enough to work on the edges and get the yards? Because I don't think they're going to be able to get the inside yards that they did before. I think it's going to be a major challenge for Ole Miss defensively. The advantage they have, to me, defensively, is if you're going to lose coaches, at least their head coaches are defensive coordinators. So he hasn't gone anywhere. So the defense has some continuity. The offense, that to me is a major question mark. I think their offensive line is solid. Now they're going against, to me, elite defensive linemen, and potentially it's a weird situation with their offensive coordinator this week. He's in Baton Rouge for LSU. He'll be showing up Wednesday or Thursday. So how is that going to be? I know they have other coaches there preparing the game plan and everything, but he's not doing much of the game planning would be my assumption. So I just think it's going to be a hard game for Ole Miss to win. I think the one advantage they have is it's unlikely Miami's going to score 40. That's not who their offense is. They're 20s, 25, 27. So I think it'll be a close game, but I think it's going to be one where Ole Miss all game is fighting just to keep it close, whereas I think Miami will be ahead, and the more they're ahead, they can run Fletcher. So I think it's going to be a major challenge for Ole Miss. I am interested for NFL like scouting purposes. Pounds, who is the left tackle for Ole Miss, is going to get. This is a great opportunity for him to show. Yes, I've had some inconsistency, but now I'm going against Bain and Mesidor. Here's a chance for him to show, hey, I'm a legit guy. I can be the guy. And again, it's another opportunity for the Harris kid to show that even though, and they had that one image of him where he didn't look so great with his gut hanging out from under his jersey. He's a massive human. Can he be athletic enough to where an NFL team says, yes, we think a guy that's 6'7", 350 can actually be a regular part of our rotation on the D-line? Or is there not really a role for someone that big in today's NFL?
Well, the kid, Deone Walker, I think he's with the Broncos out of Kentucky last year. He was down there. Big juice, stiff, right? But, I mean, there is a home for these guys because you can't move them off their mark. They just anchor down, right?
And that's why this is a good – I mean, Harris helped himself a ton.
Yeah.
Because I think, to me, when you look at a guy that big, you say, okay, we know he can be strong. But can he actually make plays? And Harris actually made plays outside of a small area, which is uncommon for a gigantic man like him. So I think he showed, hey, I'm not just that traditional, say, quote-unquote, nose tackle, which is what you think of at 350. So I think he could prove it again this week, make a big impact against Miami, really help himself. I think he could really climb in the draft with these back-to-back games.
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot. And I also do like Mark Fletcher for the Hurricanes. And we mentioned it last year. Like, he's already announced that he's going to come back for 2026. But the Hurricanes keep storming through the playoffs. And again, 19 carries, 90-plus yards, a monster performance the week before. I think $172. If he runs through Ole Miss and into the national championship, I think Mark Fletcher has to reconsider his draft future.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt he has to reconsider because we talked about it last week. The data, and we hate to keep going back to numbers, but the data on carries is unbelievable. And he's already, I think, at 380 for his career. He's at back-to-back. Now he's probably close to 1,000 this year, over 800 last year. NFL teams don't like guys in terms of the data saying if you have so many carries, you're a one-contract guy. If I'm him and I'm healthy and I play well in this game and potentially in the championship game if they win, I think he has to look at it and say, hey, it's time. Let's go to the pros, even if he ends up being a third or fourth round pick. To me, when you look at him, there's a lot of things to look at that say I can play on Sundays. So why wouldn't you try it now? At all positions, that's the position you come out early for.
I agree. He's Russ Lande. I'm Rick Serritella. We're here each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're winding down the stretch of the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch show. One more game to preview. Shout out to our guy David West in the chat room. He says, hey, Rick and Russ, been a minute. It has been a minute, David. Hopefully we see you down there on the All-Star circuit somewhere down yonder on the trails. And always good to see our good friends in the chat room. Appreciate all the love and support. Again, Tom Goodhines, Doug Dorner. If you have a question, comment, feedback, please drop it in the chat. And while you're here, I mean, we don't ask for much. And we're an hour and 10 minutes into the show. If you made it this far, do you mind giving it a like, a share, a subscribe? Do you mind helping us get our algorithm weight up as we approach the NFL Scouting Combine? Of course, we'll be on location for the Hula Bowl next week down there in Daytona, and on location across the nation for all the All-Star games, the Combine. We got our guy Dom Ambrose at the FCS Combine tomorrow, Russ. But we got one more game to break down. It's going down Friday, January 9th, and we'll be back here the following day on the 10th to recap it all. Oregon, Indiana, again, a rematch from the earlier Big Ten matchup that Indiana narrowly escaped. And failed to mention Miami's a 3.5 point favorite, 51.5 over under, which I'm a little bit surprised by. And the lower over under totals with this Oregon Indiana game, 47.5, while Indiana comes in as a 4 point favorite. Obviously, the two quarterbacks are going to be the main storyline.
No doubt, the two quarterbacks are going to be a storyline. But to me, the big thing that I want to see is you've got 4 veteran offensive linemen for Oregon. Obviously, we've talked a ton about Pregnon being the top guy there in terms of where he's getting picked. Harkey, who got injured in the game the past week, is he going to be able to play? I assume he will. He's going to Senior Bowl, another high-end prospect. The World kid who came into the year as the best prospect on their offense line, but struggled with inconsistency, and Bedford. So you have 4 legit NFL prospect offensive linemen. How do they handle Indiana's vastly underrated defensive line? That, to me, is the key to the game. If Harkey and World can show that they can handle playing tackle and Pregnon plays the way he's capable, that'll give him a chance. And again, Dante Moore cannot have a game where there's inconsistency. Dante Moore is going to need to show consistency from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, because the one thing we know we get from Indiana is they may not be the most explosive, most dynamic offense and the most dominant defense, but you know what? They're the most consistently good offense and defense in the country. So there is not going to be swings of bad quarter and good quarter. They are good every single snap. So this is the biggest challenge to me, is how does Oregon's offensive line allow that offense to be consistent throughout the game? If they could do that, they got a shot. If that offensive line struggles, this game will be over.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, two more money makers in this college football playoff on that Oregon defensive line. Washington, the tackle, I think is really firmly entrenched himself into the first round mix. And you're talking about a guy who just moves incredible for his size, pure athlete, production all over the field. He's going to test through the roof at the combine. And then Tua Toti, son of the coach there. I mean, he was all over the field. He's really he went from being a role player on this defense with Ugalele and all these other guys to really being a dominating force. And I think that Oregon defensive line is going to keep them in this matchup. But at the end of the day, Indiana has been so dominant, so impressive. To me, they've been head and shoulders above everyone in the dance. And I'm looking at what I think is going to be can be a very intriguing matchup with Miami and Indiana in the championship. Russ, who do you got? Yeah.
Well, firstly, the one thing we talked about earlier, and it's sort of a good point, is we know what we're getting from Mendoza in this game. We're pretty sure, 99% exactly what we're getting. This is your chance to see, can Moore show us now in college, hey, put the team on my back. I am going to will us to a victory.
It's time.
The best team, right? Yeah. If he does that, then I think the narrative totally changes. I think he could literally jump and say, see, I can be the guy when the money's on the line. And that could be gigantic. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. If I had to pick, I'm going to take Indiana. I think the odds favor them. But I will say, Moore is the wild card. Mm-hmm. If he plays the game of his career, they win.
Big draft implications on the line for the College Football Playoff Semifinal, January 8th and January 9th, Thursday and Friday. We got about 6 more days to go, and then 7 days until the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We're here live each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Russ, Lande, and myself breaking it down, chopping it up. I can't believe we're 110 days away to the 2026 NFL Draft. And anything else you want to get off your chest, Russ, before we let you go?
No, I mean, you said 1 hour and 10. I was thinking it's about 52 minutes. I'm trying to figure out the difference there.
Yeah, well, you were late to the party, my man. So. But we had a good show in the books. Another one archived, and we'll come back and do it again next week, my man.
I'm excited. I can't wait to watch these games. It's going to be an absolute blast. I love that they're on different days, so they're both prime time. Get to watch them without having to focus on anything else. And there's going to be some good football. I can't wait.
Yeah, buckle up and hunker down. And since you did join the fray a little bit late, I forgot to wish you a happy New Year, my man. So happy New
Same
Year
to you, brother. Back there in Jersey,
Yep.
living the life on the beach. I mean, it's a nice life you live.
We're trying. The beach is a little snowy these days, but we're trying over here. But
That's right. We know Rick was out there yesterday laying in the snow shivering just so
I was making
time.
snow angels. I was just wondering, where's Russ when you need him? He's over there in Chi-Town. So yeah, we'll do it again next week, brother. Appreciate the time.
You got it, brother. Thanks a lot for having me as always.
Absolutely. There goes Russ Lande here on the NFL Draft Watch Show. We're here each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. A little bit of housekeeping notes. If you made it this far, we greatly appreciate it. Again, can you smash that like button, share it, subscribe it, tell a friend that it's them again. The Draft Nicks are here, and our draft coverage now is really going to rev up. It's our time of year as we get into the new calendar year. It's officially draft season. Like I said, 110 days to go to destination Pittsburgh. We'll be on location across the nation through each and every step of the way. Dom Ambrose will be at the FCS Combine down in Nashville this weekend. And of course, the FCS championship game is Monday night. You've got Cinderella, Illinois State against powerhouse Montana State. Montana State coming in as 10.5-point favorites. But we did post the FCS Combine list on Wednesday in the All Access Football Report on the website. We also had the Hot 100 list on Monday in the Scout Notebook. And then this Monday, I depart for Daytona as I make my way down to the 80th Hula Bowl. And I'm so excited to join my partner, Brian Baldinger, down there. I heard from Connie Carberg, the first female NFL scout, good friend of the show, is going to be on location. So it's always a great time to catch up with her. Of course, team inside the league with our good friend Neil Stratton will be joining me. And in fact, if you're going to be down there in Daytona, I know we're trying to get some folks from the football industry to meet up back at the hotel on Tuesday night. So if you're going to be down there in town, if you're an agent, a scout, a coach, a player, a football professional, we'd love to get to know you. So drop us a line, ric@allaccessfootball.com. The Hula Bowl preview should be coming out on Monday as well. In the meantime, we've compiled the Dream Bowl rosters and the College Gridiron Showcase rosters. The 12th annual College Gridiron Showcase is taking place January 7th through the 9th, I believe. We'll be unveiling those rosters on the website any day here. I also have the Dream Bowl rosters. Shout out to Jarrett Regal, part of the All Access football staff, but also on the Dream Bowl scouting department. And the Dream Bowl will be taking place January 9th through 11th. So we'll have Jarrett down at the Dream Bowl. We'll have our guy Will Donahue down at the College Gridiron Showcase, as well as Dom Ambrose is also going to be at the College Gridiron Showcase. And then after I make my way from the Hula Bowl, I'll be down there for practices on January 6th and the 7th. I will then head back to Florida. We'll be like a ping pong ball from Daytona to the Jersey Shore down to Orlando for the American Bowl, the inaugural American Bowl, which is really shaping up to be a nice looking roster. They're going to be broadcast on NFL Network. And then, of course, we'll make our way down to Dallas for the East-West Shrine Bowl and eventually over to Mobile for the Panini Senior Bowl. And then, of course, we'll be on location for the NFL Scouting Combine at the end of February. We'll be bringing you all the updates from the Pro Day trails. And then, of course, in April, the Big Kahuna 2026 NFL Draft Bible. It's the best damn draft guide on the market. Money back guaranteed. If you buy the draft Bible and you don't think it's the best damn draft guide on the market, no questions asked. I'll refund your money. That's how confident I am in the product. It's our 24th edition. You can see I have the gray hair to prove it, ladies and gentlemen. It's our 24th year of providing independent scouting analysis. And I do have to take a moment to give a shout out to the scouting department. I mentioned some of the guys, and Will Donahue and Jarrett Regal and Dom Ambrose. We've also got Ryan Paglia out on the West Coast and Lauren Davidoff down there in the Mid-Atlantic region. They'll all be on location at the Senior Bowl with me. So if you're an NFL decision maker tuned in and listening to the show, looking for a young up and coming scout, we've got the best there is. And I stand by that. You're going to get to see the product we put out in April, at least 500 scouting reports. I think we're trending towards the record. In the 24-year history of the NFL Draft Bible, I think the most scouting reports we have ever had in a single book was 782. And don't hold me to this. I haven't had an official tally or count of where we're at right now, but I would guesstimate we're trending towards setting a new record, which has been a testament to the outstanding and incredible work of the NFL Draft Bible front office. So, by the way, I do have a promo code if you're interested in subscribing. RIC VIP will get you 30% off. So, RIC VIP at checkout saves you 30% off subscription there. And then a couple of other events. By the way, I mentioned the networking event at the Hula Bowl on Tuesday, January the 6th. We'll also be having a football industry network meetup at the American Bowl. So, again, if you're interested in meeting up down there in Florida, RIC at NFLDraftBible.com. Now, coming up, down there in Mobile for the 2026 Senior Bowl, we're going to have the Sports Management Worldwide meet and greet at Veets. That's going to be Monday night during Senior Bowl week, first night kicking off. All the football industry professionals will be joining us there, scouts, coaches, media, agents. Of course, our good friend Brian Baldinger will be down there with me once again, and we're going to redo the film room session that was so educational, so informative, along with our guy Dane Vandernat, who's now with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, formerly of the Oakland Raiders. But we had such a phenomenal film session breaking down the Senior Bowl practices. We're going to do that again. So log on to smww.com, click events, the Senior Bowl meet and greet if you want a ticket for that. And then the Football Career Conference is the biggest football networking industry event of the year. That's going to be February 26th and 27th up there in Indianapolis. And I'll be one of the special guest MCs for the educational panel portion of the Football Career Conference. There's also the Punch Bowl Social, where hundreds of football industry professionals gather and exchange pleasantries. So if you work in football, aspire to work in football, want to level up your football network and education, join us for the SMWW Football Career Conference again over on smww.com. Click events and you'll get in there like swimwear. We're down here at the Jersey Shore. Don't get me going on a little freestyle. I saw they shut down MTV networks after 44 years. I got this experience, I guess, every year of its existence. But hey, I want my MTV. And I hate departing it. Like, this is the saddest time of the week, each and every week. Saturday, it's time to say goodbye. We actually went 90 minutes instead of our usual hour of power. And we got some good questions in from the chat room. And hopefully that continues as we get closer to the draft. Again, 110 days away to destination Pittsburgh. 2 NFL playoff games on the docket with the bowl season wrapped up. So 2 good games, by the way. And Monday night, the FCS championship. Keep it locked to allaccessfootball.com. We'll be providing those FCS combine results and standouts, top performers. I'll have exclusive practice reports down there from the Hula Bowl. We'll have some videos from Brian Baldinger from the Hula Bowl practice as well. So it's a can't stop, won't stop situation. Monday will be the Scout Notebook. Tuesday, we'll probably have the Hula Bowl preview. Wednesday's the All Access Football report. And then Friday, the Scout Notebook. Somewhere in between time or in the meantime, we'll post the Dream Bowl rosters, the College Gridiron Showcase rosters. And thank you, Douglas Dorner, for wishing me safe travels on our journeys. Again, our 24th season of covering the NFL draft. So go over to allaccessfootball.com. Check out the headquarters page. We've got over 1,000 prospects for you to consume right now. Scouting reports, projections, verified measurements. It's a can't stop, won't stop situation. For Russ, Lande, my co-host, Rick Serritella, allaccessfootball.com, the NFL Draft Bible Familia, all of you out there, smash that like button one more time, and we'll see you next Saturday on January the 10th at 10 a.m. Eastern. Happy New Year, everyone.